Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you a TV episode from the classic Goosebumps TV show that we all know and love. And I chose the two-parter episode to review, and that is Stay Out of the Basement. I know the DVD says A Night in Terror Tower, but trust me, the two-parter Stay Out of the Basement is included on this DVD set, so I'll be using this for reference. I really dig this episode. This is one of my top 10 favorite episodes of all time. Probably in that 8 to 6 range on the list. Very close to being a top 5 episode. This is one of my favorite William Fruet episodes. William Fruet, in my opinion, is the best director and adapter in the old TV show, simply because he was able to execute changes in the adaptations from the books and do them justice. Stay Out of the Basement's one of the 3 better ones he did. Another one being, of course, the Werewolf of Fever Swamp, which is one of my all-time favorite episodes, and I've given that a 5 out of 5 on the channel. And then he adapted the second Haunted Mask episode, Haunted Mask 2, which arguably, because of the changes, should be called Haunted Mask Part 2. But still, that episode is probably my favorite episode of all time, and the changes there were executed well by him there too. In this episode, a lot of the remedial things from the book that got skimmed over were fixed. A couple of things that didn't really add anything to the story were removed, like Margaret's friend and a secondary nickname, like I said in the book review. But other than that, the pacing on this rocked. I dug the 42-minute time frame to tell this. I think it was very appropriate. It's one of those satisfying suspense builds in the show, and it's genuinely one of the scarier episodes. So, let's get into it without giving too much away here. So, like the book, Margaret and Casey have to say goodbye to their mother as she has to leave for the airport to go visit their Aunt Eleanor, except this time it's only for a weekend. And their mother sent Margaret and Casey back into the house to retrieve their father out of the basement because he's so consumed with his work. And the kids are obviously bummed out that they have to be left home alone with their father, who basically ignores them these days. Margaret even mentions that he doesn't even call her princess anymore. Feels like that bond is completely broken and not there anymore. And this really saddens her. But the story progresses on, and Margaret and Casey go to the basement, and they open the door and they start to head down, and then they're surprised by their father, who screams at them and scolds them, stay out of the basement. And then their father questions them, why you're going in the basement, and they just said, well, we were just trying to get you so you can take mom to the airport. He goes, oh yeah. And he goes, while I'm gone, stay out of there. Don't get anywhere near there, and everything will be cool. So the father leaves and takes their mother to the airport, and Margaret and Casey are home by themselves, like the book. Except this time, like I said, Margaret's friend is not involved in the story here. So Margaret and Casey get the idea to maybe check out the basement while their father is gone. Now, this is where Margaret and Casey get to see what's down there for the first time, and they know their father is a doctor, he's a botanist, he works for this company. Like in the book, for example, the company he works for, he had lost his job. As in the episode, he's just so consumed with his work that it's basically the same thing. He's lost his job, but he's basically working from home because he has nothing else to do. So the kids know that he's been obsessing about this and want to see what's down there. And when they get down there, they notice that the basement's very, very hot, almost like jungle, weather. And Casey gets so hot he has to take his shirt off, or the hoodie he was wearing or something. And they start exploring the basement, and they notice all these exotic looking plants that don't really look like any plants that would natively grow where they live. And some of these plants have weird characteristics to them, weird behavior that plants don't normally have. And this starts to weird them out. And when they, keep looking around, they they start noticing these weirder plants, and of course, before they can observe anymore, the father is coming in the driveway, and they can hear it through the basement, and Margaret and Casey rush to run upstairs, and before they both can make it up, Casey's like, oh, I left my sweatshirt down here, I have to go get it. And of course there's this suspense-filled scene where the father is coming back inside and of course confronts them and asks them, were you in the basement? And they try to deny it at first, and then the father sits them down and assures them that just stay out of the basement. I'm working on something right now. It's very important to me. I will appreciate you if you're doing that. I'm just working with some plants. I'm a botanist. That's what I do. So Margaret, of course, feels bad and feels like maybe she did something wrong to her father, and maybe that's why he's been so distant. So she decides the next morning to make him some breakfast to kind of patch some things up with him. And she makes him this breakfast, and she goes to out of the room for a second. And when she comes back in, she observes her father eating plant food out of this container and drinking big gulps of water. This creeps her out, and she tries to call her mom, which is this very scary scene where the father picks up the phone out of her hand, stares at her intently, and hangs up the phone. So weird. And Margaret's like, okay, this is very bizarre here. Something's going on. Later that night, she's in bed, and she hears this grunting coming from the hallway, and the grunting is coming from her father's room, and she goes in there to the father's room, and she looks through the bathroom door, which happens to have a little slit you can look inside, and she sees her father basically with plants growing out of his head and green ooze coming out of his arm. And this freaks her out, and she runs back into her room to try to hide and pretend to be asleep. And the father, of course, comes in and just thinks that she's sleeping and slams the door. The next morning, there's some tension with Margaret and her father, and she confronts him about what she saw. And the father basically says, okay, so I'm doing experiments. This is all a side effect. It's only temporary. I'll be better. It'll get better. And Margaret says, okay, why not? And the father tries to feed them this weird mix that he's made. Now he's made them breakfast, and it's like this weird green mush, and I still want to know what that green mush is. The book never elaborates on what Dr. Brewer was making for them to eat. I don't want to know at this point whether it was like crushed up plant DNA or something like crazy radioactive from, I don't know. But he was trying to force him to eat it, and it's very tense. But like the book, the doctor at the institute that he used to work at comes to visit. I think they changed the name, but the name is escaping of the other doctor. But the doctor comes in and wants to look at Dr. Brewer's stuff he has going on in the basement. Maybe it might be a good sign for his work. Maybe he can come back or something. So he starts to head into the basement. So the father says, go outside, play outside for a little bit. So Margaret and Casey go outside to play some frisbee. And while they're playing frisbee, they hear this weird sounds coming from the basement outside. So they go to try to observe. And of course, there's this cliffhanger in part one where this plant is about to grab Casey as he's observing through the window of the basement. Now this ordeal picks up in part two where Margaret has to free Casey from this vine and hurt the vine, basically cutting it, and the vine retreats. And then the noises stop, and then all of a sudden the father comes outside to confront the kids. Says, what were you doing out here? Were you spying on me? The actor who plays the father is so good at playing the mean dad. He's almost like dictator dad versus the book. And I have to say, Dr. Brewer, there's such a big character change in the book, as from the book to the episode. As the episode, he's much more sinister feeling. As in the book, he's kind of more empathetic at sometimes, but not in the episode at all. And that's a change I really enjoyed. But anyway, they're like, okay, he starts to figure out that they're spying on him, and then it cuts to a scene where he's putting padlocks on the basement door, and the kids are watching, and he goes, that should keep you two out. make you quit spying on me. So they later get this idea to try to call their mom, and they realize that the phone number is missing that the mom has left behind. They have no other option than to go into their father's room again and spy on him some more and try to find the missing number. The father happened to be out running some errands on a stormy night, and Margaret goes in there to find the number. And of course the dad comes back because he forgot something. There's a really eerie scene with him talking with Casey, trying to cover for Margaret. And of course Casey, after he leaves again, Casey and Margaret snoop the room, and they notice something weird about the bed, and they lift up the covers, and there's worms all over the bed. And this sets Margaret off. She goes, that's it, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to find out what's really in the basement. So Margaret and Casey head downstairs to this storage closet, presumably after they witness what happened in their father's bedroom with the bed of worms. And they grab some weed killer and a crowbar, and they pry open the lock where the basement is, and they head down to try to solve the mystery once and for all while their father is out still running errands. And they go down there armed and ready for whatever can come, and they notice that these plants have mutated with human parts. There's hands, and there's weird plants with human faces. It's really jarring, especially for mid-90s stuff. This is pretty jarring stuff to see done in a kid's horror episode, and it was just really good for its time. And of course, something scary happens, and they have to kill one of the plants. And after they kill one of the plants, they hear some noises coming from the closet across the room, so they head across the room, and the closet is closed off with this giant 2x4 nailed into the door frame. So they used a crowbar and pry the 2x4 off, and they open the door, turn on the light, thinking that possibly the doctor that came to visit the day before that mysteriously vanished, they never heard him leave or anything. They figured that he would be in the closet. But plot twist, another person falls out of the closet, and upon closer examination, it looks like their father. Margaret's freaking out. She's trying to urge Casey to let's untie him, and the father is kind of dazed, and he picks up the crowbar in self-defense, getting ready to do something potentially to the kids. And then the dad that's running errands comes home and walks down the stairs. So now there's two fathers, and the father coming down the stairs says, don't trust that creature there. He's a plant copy. He's not real. And they start bickering about who's real and who's not real, who's the plant, who's the accident. And Margaret is armed with the weed killer, ready to take one of them out, or maybe even both of them out. And one of the fathers finally says a code word that triggers within Margaret, this has to be my real father, and that code word was princess, as mentioned in the beginning of the episode. That's how Margaret's father has always referred to her. And when Margaret heard that, she obviously took the weed killer and sprayed it on the dad that didn't say it, and of course, that dad died because he was a plant. I'm not going to say which dad it was. But, of course, the story wraps up where the doctor that went missing was also rescued out of the basement, and the father that remains took all the plants out of his basement and basically told the whole story of what happened from his perspective, and he got his job back working at the institute where he was fired from previously, and then everything seems okay until the twist ending. So that in a nutshell is Stay Out of the Basement. Let's start off with the strengths of this episode. This is one of the prime examples of how changing source material can benefit the episode in tremendous ways. I think the changes in this episode solved a lot of the remedial problems the book had and kind of cut out a lot of the major filler that was in the book. And I really appreciated that. And for a 42-minute episode, it doesn't feel like it drags because the acting is very good. The suspense is there. The cinematography is very, very, very well done for its time. Some of the effects are jarring and really gives that science fiction aura going. And not to mention, Dr. Brewer is one of the A-plus villains of the original show. I put him up there with the Swamp Hermit. I put him up there with the Shopkeeper. I mean, I put him up there with Carl even. Some of my favorite villains from the show. Dr. Brewer gets an A+. Phenomenal job from the actor who played Dr. Brewer. And Casey and Margaret, also really well acted. I only really have one slight negative with the episode. And the slight negative, I'm only going to duck like 0.1 off. And I can understand to an extent why it wasn't in the episode. But the book had this technology element in the basement that really interested me. And I think the episode, you know, given that there's plenty of other episodes later on with technology featured, like Perfect School and stuff, they could have easily made something to kind of look like a particle separator or whatever to kind of give it that more science fiction feel that the book had. The basement just kind of felt like a normal workshop basement / garage. I mean, and that's really my negative here. And we're getting to aesthetics here about the set. I mean, is that really something negative to be pointing out? But I think, yeah, compared to the book did a lot better job at that, even though this did fix a lot of the remedial filler parts, like Margaret's friend and some of these repetitive scenes, and especially some scenes that really don't make sense, that the story just says, hey, this started happening. And then, of course, like some plot devices that the book uses near the end that really don't add anything from the beginning of the story, and why those elements were ever put into the book, I don't know. The episode fixed, but like I said, the basement just wasn't to the level that the book was for me, so I deducted like 0.1 off. So all in all, I gave this episode from a 0 to 5 stars a 4.9 out of 5. This was one of my childhood favorite episodes, and it still is. It still holds up to this day. I love Stay Out of the Basement, the episode. So yeah, this is my review for the Stay Out of the Basement episode. Let me know in the comments section. Did you love or did you hate this? I'm dying to know, and I'll see you next time.